everybody, it's me again, and this time I'm in English. I said that I would try to make some videos in German, but I've pretty much given up on German because it's too hard. Not really, but I'll come back to it from time to time. I'll always be trying to learn German. I don't know if I will ever actually learn it. It's very difficult, and I'm not a language person, and I can't do languages very well. So I've made this video and wanted to make a video like this for a long time, and I've made this video a few times, but I never really uploaded properly or anything because I can never really get my thoughts together. But I feel like it's really important, so I'm going to. In the last video, I said that I am no longer an anti-feminist, so I want to talk about that a little bit, and I want to talk about my problem or my major problem with feminism today, or my major problem with feminism as someone who is not an anti-feminist or who is not non-feminist. So I'm not coming at feminists from a point of view of, oh, y'all are bad. I'm just coming at you and from the point of view of, I used to be an anti-feminist, but I listened to you and I agree with most of what you had to say, and I've listened. And so now this is my major question after having listened to you and after having agreed with most of what you have to say. So for me, basically, the turning point, or how I probably turned from someone who was very anti-feminist to someone who is no longer really anti-feminist, was the fact that, like, okay, so we have problems with inequality. Okay, for me, the major fact was, like, in doing Women Against Feminism and stuff like that, I was encountering a lot of anti-feminists who were very racist, you know. And, like, I don't really have a problem with racism so much. Like, if you're racist, that's okay. But it was like, there was so much of it which was anti-me. And, like, I couldn't keep justifying that. So I had to, I had to listen more to feminism. So, okay, so if we say there is inequality, because for me as someone who is black, let's say, I understand that racism exists, and I've felt racism from a more intimate perspective than people who don't have to face it. So my question is, okay, so basically you say there's inequality, we need to fix the inequality, whatever. There's inequality between men and women, there's inequality between different races, there's inequality between people of different sexual orientations, and blah, 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 and this is all true. And so we need to fix it, and how we fix it is that we ask society to change its culture and to become more egalitarian, and that is what feminism is, right? So for me, the problem that I'm having with feminism is that if all of that is true, right, and I'm to say that I agree with you, you're right, what you're saying makes sense, you know, all of this inequality exists, and we can do better, we should do better, we should try to do better, right? The biggest inequality which exists in the world today is not, in my opinion, is not really gender or race or any of those things. To me, the biggest inequality which exists, not just today, but throughout all of history and today, has always been wealth, right? So, therefore, feminism should fight to end wealth inequality. And then you will say, yes, feminism is usually associated with leftists. Liberals are fighting to end wealth inequality. Liberals are anti the system of capitalism that we have, and they would like to close the wealth gap, right? Okay, so that makes sense. So I agree with you. Let's fight this wealth inequality, right? However, the biggest wealth inequality that exists is between nations, right? I mean, I don't know the numbers. I don't know the numbers, but I know that I've traveled around the world enough to see the conditions in which people live in, and I can tell you that in certain countries, it is simply much worse. And anybody looking at it would be able to tell you that the biggest wealth gaps exist between nations. Okay? So why is it that feminism doesn't have... Why is it that we're not talking about this? Why is it that feminists are not talking about the wealth gaps or the nation-based gaps that we have? Why do we talk about racism but not nationalism? Why do we talk about segregation that happened, that was happening 80 years ago, or not so long, 60, 70 years ago, or whatever, but not about the segregation that's happening today between people who belong to different nations. How is it any different to discriminate against me because I happen to be born black, but it's bad to discriminate against me because I happen to be born black, but it's okay to discriminate against me and tell me that I can't get this job in this country because I happen to be born in another country? How is that any different? How is segregation of the past different to the segregation that we have today in terms of nation-based segregation? And if it is not any different, why does feminism not address this, since it is such a big global issue that affects millions and millions of people, and it is the biggest inequality that we have today? How can you address inequality without even mentioning this? And then people will say, or at least the feminists that I think I've encountered would say, well, because those are problems that we can't address. We have to address what we can address now, but we can't address those, so we don't even. It's just like it's not within my power. So, like, I can't tell people what to do in other countries, but you also can't tell people what to do in your own country. That's what the other side would say. You also can't. I just don't understand how you could close your eyes to something that is so real and something that is so important and something that is like the biggest inequality that exists. If you're going to deal with inequalities between men and women within the country that I live in, if you take the Netherlands or whatever right now, if you're going to say that the difference between these two is so big and we have to deal with that type of inequality, but you're going to close your eyes to inequality between somebody who's literally starving and the average person here, I just don't understand it. And I don't know where's the part of liberalism, or where's the part of the left, or where's the part of feminism that deals specifically with that, because I don't really want to deal with gender or race or any of those other stuff. Although I agree and I admit that there are differences and that there is inequality, I will admit it. But it's not that important to me as what I'm talking about right now. And if I have to choose, I would want to deal with that form of inequality. I would want to have that form of inequality addressed first, because there are millions and millions of people who are riding on this. And the other thing that really annoys me, and I've wanted to make a video on this as well. This is actually what I really meant when I said I wanted to make a video on this. And I'm sorry to African Americans, but this upsets me extremely. It upsets me from a perspective of being black, because there is this sort of, divided you rule sort of. So I don't know if it's just the media that makes it or whatever. I don't know where it's coming from, but there's this sort of fighting within the black community between Africans and African Americans. And the idea is that African Americans feel that Africans don't respect them or give them credit for all the struggles that they've been through. And I recently saw a video that, it got millions of views, and it was shared by something called Tom. I think the girl's name is Tim K or whatever. I wish I could have been more thorough and put up the video, but it is someone. It was shared by Upworthy, and it was shared on liberal websites, I think, or whatever. But it's just like, she makes her own videos. Anyway, it was an African American woman complaining, and she was saying that America is built on the backs of blacks, and that so they built the country, and that they fought for civil rights, and everything they did enabled other immigrants to come here, including African immigrants. So they need to be more grateful. And then you had in the comments of Upworthy, for example, the most liked comment, "Oh, I'm Asian American, and I'm so grateful for all that the African Americans have done," and blah blah blah. And it's like, yes, I agree with her, and I understand what she's saying, and I have all respect for African Americans. However, she is, and everybody, and the whole of the left is closing their eyes to the reality that the people who she's asking to be grateful to her are people who she needs to be grateful to, because she is today standing on their backs without realizing it, without admitting it, without acknowledging it. She stands on the backs of the third world, of poor people in the world, just as it always has been, because capitalism did not change. The system did not change. The scale of the system changed. But we still have a system of oppression. We still have a system where those at the bottom do a lot of work and do not get compensated for the work that has been done. And she stands on their backs and then tells them, berates them, and tells them that they are bad people for not being grateful to her because they are immigrants. The ones who made it, the few who made it or whatever, are immigrants in her country, and then they come and disrespect her. Okay, so I don't think that Africans should disrespect African Americans, and I'm sorry for the experiences that she had if she was ever disrespected. But she has labeled an entire group of people as being generally disrespectful to her. Okay? And as not being grateful to her ancestors, when the story that she tells, the cultural story that she tells, is not exactly the truth, because Africans at the time when she was going through segregation were also going through decolonialization, and they also fought. But she said how it was African Americans who fought, and then African Americans fought to free them, and then blah 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 blah, and how their fight caused it. And that I don't think is actually true. But she made up her own story, and that story is generally believed. But whatever. So the point is, right? Why is the left not calling out African Americans when they do this? Because they do it and they get away with it, and they get praised for it, and they get, because they do it and they get praised, and they don't get called out for any of it. And it's like, if the idea is that you're not supposed to, is that African Americans are oppressed, and therefore we must acknowledge that. We must acknowledge the history of oppression that the United States of America was built upon. Why are we not acknowledging the history of oppression that the entire world was built upon, and that all of the rich countries in the world were built upon, and that all of the poor countries, even within their own country, has been built upon and is still being built upon? Why don't we acknowledge this problem? Why is that not being acknowledged? And will that ever be acknowledged? And how could the left get away and let people get away with not acknowledging this? That's what I don't understand. So that is my question to feminism, or to feminists, or whatever. And I mean it in an honest way. Can you please answer me this as someone who is not really against you? Like, give me some hope. Tell me that y'all are also fighting for this, and that there's maybe some branch of feminism that I don't know about that is fighting to change the situation, and that includes the third world, and doesn't just close their eyes and say we can't do anything about that because they're not in the same country as us. Because to me, somebody not being in the same country as you doesn't make their lives worth less, and shouldn't make their lives worth less. And we should be able to see that people, even though they don't speak our language or are not in the same exact country as ours, need our help and want our help. And if you ask anybody from the third world, because I've spoken to a lot of people, and I'm also from the third world initially, all of them would say they would want help to change the system in their country, to change the situation, to change poverty, and to get out of poverty, and to end poverty. And that the rich countries, yes, I'm sorry, they were built on the backs of the third world. Yes, places like India produce food for Europe during times when they didn't have food for themselves and died off because they had to send food to Europe. Yes, places like where I'm from in the Caribbean spent our entire written history, so the past 500 years, producing for Europe, and all of the profits of whatever was made went to Europe and went to make Europe what it is today. And it's not acknowledged. It's not acknowledged at all. Nobody acknowledges it. Nobody cares. And so yeah, today the same thing happens. The same thing happens. The work of those who are poor contributes to the lifestyle that we live today, and that has to be acknowledged at some point. It has to be acknowledged. I don't understand. Where is the left? Where's the left there?